He's got too much pine tar.
Sloppy jalopy. They were doing the Chris Davis fishing for it.
Might be going to call George Brett out.
Well, he is. He's out.
Yes, sir.
Brett is out. Look at this. Brett is out. And
Steaming mad.
he is out and having to be forcibly restrained from hitting plate umpire Tim McClellan.
Too much pot tar. way too much pot tar.
And welcome back to another episode of Too Much Pod Tar. As today is September 2nd, so I'm going to be going over some of the trades that happened over the last few days there with the trade deadline. So for this episode, I have Johnnie Black on again, and then making his return to the podcast is Kody Clawson. So welcome back, Kody. It's been a minute since you've been on here, but yeah, good to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so it was a crazy day there with the trade deadline. Obviously, the Clevenger deal was the biggest one that happened there with the Padres and Indians, but a bunch of trades that happened there last second. It's kind of the opposite of what I expected, or a lot of us expected, including, Sam was big on saying that he didn't think it was anything that much was going to happen, but it turned out to be a lot, like pretty big trades. So I guess we'll start off there, though, with the Clevenger trade, with the Padres getting Clevenger. It's going to make their rotation really scary. They're definitely going for it. They also made other moves like Trevor Rosenthal and Mitch Moreland, so they're all in on trying to compete with the Dodgers in that NL West. So yeah, I'll go over that trade. The full trade was Clevenger and Greg Allen, and also a player to be named later who turned out to be Matt Waldron going to the Padres, and Josh Naylor, Cal Quintrill, and Gabriel Arias, Austin Hedges, Joey Cantillo, and Owen Miller going to the Indians. So pretty big haul for the Indians. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that trade?
Well, I think it sets up the Padres for the next couple of years. I mean, when you look at it, their staff basically sets up next year as Clevenger, Paddock, Gore, Patino. Who am I missing? Oh, Lamet. Lamet. So that's pretty solid right there. If one of any of those guys are your fifth starter, then I'd be happy with it. They gave up a lot of depth in their farm system. I think 7, 9, and 11 as far as the San Diego prospects were gone. Gabriel Arias looks like he's going to stick it short. He's more of a field first guy, but he's a really good fielder. They're worried about his bat. They moved him, but I mean, Owen Miller is kind of a middle infielder. He could slot it in second base. Cantillo is the interesting one because he's a top-notch left-handed starter. And what Cleveland's done with their starting pitching the past few years, I mean, bringing up guys like Savali and Plesac and Bieber and all these guys, Cookie Carrasco, and they've worked wonders with their starters. So I can see Cantillo making a mark, another year or two, and being at the top of their rotation with Bieber. And they got Josh Naylor, a solid hitter, who's slotted in the left field. I mean, he's a left-handed version, kind of a Franmil Reyes. And like I said, Miller and Arias can slot in at second and short. I mean, they have Cesar Hernandez and Frankie Lindor there right now, but we all know that Frankie Lindor is probably on the move because they're not going to sign him. So Arias is looking to come up possibly next year. Maybe it depends on the trades, but they can definitely. He and Miller can definitely slot in on the middle infield, and Naylor can slot in the left field. So I think it was a good move on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, the Padres got that ace starter. They got that top-notch starter. They got Greg Allen, who can slot in. He's a fourth outfielder, basically, which works well for them for some depth. And the Indians got quantity, and some quality. So I mean, I think it worked out for both sides. Time will tell how these guys pan out, but I think they definitely both got, from what it looks like now, it's a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Well, I think, as you obviously said, there's always with any trade, it's going to be, time will tell. But as it looks right now, it's definitely a win-win. But Kody, what are your thoughts on what your team and the Red Sox did over the deadline?
Oh, you're going to bounce me over to the Red Sox. Oh, I was still in the mentality. Put in my 2 cents on Clevenger. The trade deadline, like you were saying before, is kind of weird because we weren't expecting it to be this much, or at least I wasn't. I was expecting there to maybe be a few deals, maybe one big splash one, and then that would be it. But we saw teams all of a sudden turn on their pace and just make moves all over the place. It helps that we have. Well, it always helps that we have Jerry Dipoto existing. If you're excited about trades, so that's good. We had Cleveland here, needed to deal Clevenger for reasons, mostly COVID related. The incident involving COVID related reasons. Even though the Indians will try to claim that that's not the reason they did it. I mean, okay, sure, if you want to say that. But also we have, and we saw it now, AJ Preller. I almost forgot his name for a second. AJ Preller being very hungry to get his team not only into the playoffs, but into the playoffs with the chance to really do some damage. And so we saw him not only going after a big name like Clevenger, but also going after little pieces like Greg Allen, who was also involved in the Clevenger trade, going after Mitch Moreland from the Red Sox, who has a certain role to his skill set, but he's very good at that role, being a lefty bat and platoon bat, but being very darn good one and playing very well at first base too. So it's interesting to see, especially because the other pitching that Padres had. I mean, I still like Chris Paddock. I still think he's got a good future ahead of him. He struggled a bit this year. I like Lamet. I think I really underrated Lamet because I thought he was just a 2-pitch pitcher and he wasn't going to be able to do much of anything. But boy, has he been trying to prove me wrong. But getting Clevenger, I mean, there's no one scarier in that rotation, and no one you want to face less as an opposing team if he's their game one starter. You're like, okay, this is going to be an interesting battle. As far as the Red Sox, I mean, kudos to them for realizing this isn't their year, and as much as they may have wanted to maybe try to deal guys like Bogarts or some names in order to get some big cachet, they just went and did little deals, dealing Mitch Moreland, as I said before, dealing Millard to the Rockies, just getting little bits of depth back into the farm system. No major names as far as I'm concerned, but just getting depth and getting bodies back into that farm system after it's been depleted for so many years is a good thing, and hopefully they'll start to kind of turn their system around, turn their fortunes around for the future.
Yeah, that's always seems with the Red Sox. They're always like, after they win the World Series, they're just like right after, they just always have to rebuild. Like they're always like one and done, pretty much. Been like that since they're their World Series in 2004, like after the year after, right, immediately after, they kind of fall off, have to rebuild.
They do seem to like to be a team of extremes. They kind of go all in whenever it's their chance, and then when they do that, they kind of fall back on what they've got, and what they've got sometimes ends up being not a whole lot. So, and we've seen that now after 2018, the very rapid collapse of the team and just not having anything to fall back on when things started to not go their way, especially health wise. So.
Yeah, but Johnny, I just want to ask you too. Like, what are your thoughts about the Twins not making any moves over the deadline?
Well, I was hoping they would make some moves. They could use another starter. I mean, I was hoping they would use their minor league pieces, a couple of them, to try to get Clevenger. But trading within the division is always tough. I mean, I don't think Cleveland was probably into it, but you know, I also wouldn't have minded another bullpen piece or two. Taylor Williams, who I think he went to the Padres too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He was someone I actually noted in my Twins article at the trade deadline, because he's been like, his ERA is like 6 something, but he hasn't been as bad as that indicates. He gave up 5 runs in 2/3 of an inning, like his last outing before that. So I mean, it doubled his ERA. I mean, he's a strikeout guy, 18 strikeouts in 12 innings. You know, he's someone they could have used. I mean, with the Twins, Clippard and Duffy, the 2 Tylers, they've been solid. Taylor Rogers has been hit and miss, but he's been pretty good, you know, and I trust him. Smeltzer's been decent in the bullpen, but I mean, they could definitely have used another starter or two. You know, even a lineup piece they really could have used. I mean, when Buxton was hurt, Jake Cave is good. You know, that's fine. But I mean, with Donaldson going down, you know, but they're expecting these guys back, so I understand they're not going to make like a crazy move for somebody. But I still would have liked them, you know, especially after the offseason. You know, the season we had last year with 100 wins, 101 wins, you know, they went out and got Maeda. They went out and signed Donaldson. They showed that they're, you know, this is the time now. This is the window. Let's do this. And as a trading deadline to not do anything, I don't know. It's a little disappointing, honestly. A little disappointing.
Yeah, I was definitely expecting them to do something, like, especially with they have good starters, but they probably need, like you said, like, well, at least one more guy there, like, because Maeda's been phenomenal this year. He's been a stud, but they did.
Yeah, Maeda's been great. You know, Dobnak's been great too, which he was kind of a surprise this year. Barrios has been okay. He's kind of settled in, I think. He had a couple bad outings in the beginning of the year, but I think he's starting to settle in. I'm hoping he gets his thing going. But I mean, Odorizzi's been hurt. You know, Pineda will be back. You know, we're Rich Hill, but I mean, I don't know. I just think we could have used another starter, even if it wasn't Clevenger. I think getting someone, even like Robbie Ray, who has had struggles this year and can't find a strike zone, just someone, because he's had a bad year and he's in a contract year. I know it's a rental, but I just think they could have brought him in and maybe corrected his thing, whatever was going on with him, and got him, you know, got him straight. But you know, the fact that they didn't do anything, I don't like it. I would have liked to see something.
Yeah, just another thing I want to touch on is, you know, some other teams that did some good trades. The Phillies had some good trades there, with starting off with the Red Sox trade with the Red Sox. They traded for Brandon Workman and Heath Henry. Also Connor Siebold for Nick Pavetta. They also got what the hell? I just forgot his name. What's his name? He was a former Yankee. Oh my God. Oh, David Phelps. They got David Phelps from the Brewers. So they got some important pieces there for the bullpen. The bullpen was one of their main weaknesses that they needed to address. So yeah, I like what they did over the deadline. And also another one, they also got David Hale from the Yankees, which he's kind of a decent, kind of a long relief option they can have. But yeah, I think they have a good shot of trying to contend in the NL East. Right now they're what? I think they were the sixth seed right now, or something.
Yeah, they're tied with the Marlins for, I think, the 6th seed. So, I mean, they'll be around there. Where's my World Series pick? So they better get hot soon.
Yeah, and also another team that had a really busy trade deadline was the Blue Jays, which they hold the 8th seed, which they would be playing the Rays in the first round if the season ended today. They made a lot of moves. Well, they got Robbie Ray, which Johnny just talked about. See if he can find something there, but I'm not really sold on him. Improving, especially in the AL East, because it's obviously it's a hitter friendly division. So, but you never know. Maybe he'll end up finding something there. Who else did they get?
They got Stripling from
they got
the Dodgers.
The Dodgers, yeah.
Yeah.
That was
they also got
that was like a last second deal there.
Yeah, they also got Taiwan Walker.
Oh yeah, right. And they also got VR from the Marlins.
Yep. Yeah, so they're all in. I mean, VR was a good move because Bichette's down. So I mean, to keep and Villar's a good player. There's no doubt. I mean, he can play second and short. He's a solid defender. He's not Andrelton Simmons at shortstop, but he's decent enough, to fill in. Got some power, got some speed. I mean, getting Ray, Walker, and Stripling. I mean, Ryu's been a surprise this year because I thought coming from the Dodgers last year, going to the AL East, playing in Toronto in the Rogers Center, I didn't think he was going to be anything great, but he's at a sub-3 ERA, 40 strikeouts to 10 walks. I mean, he's been doing his thing, and it's looking like a good signing. Unfortunately for the Blue Jays, they have a couple injuries. Trent Thornton's been hurt. Nate Pearson, that big dude that they really wanted to see this year, he's been on the IL. I mean, so they made the moves. Hopefully, for them, if they can correct Robbie Ray and get Taiwan Walker and Ross Stripling to it's interesting to me because they traded for Ray, who's got like a 7.8 ERA. He was leading the National League in walks before he left Arizona. 31 walks in 31 innings.
Yeah.
They got Ross Stripling, who's having the worst year of his career. They must see something in these guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would be thinking, because both those guys are having horrible years. Stripling is someone. Stripling actually has 2 more years on his contract, so they have him through the next 2 years. So that's I can see that because it's a long-term thing. But Robbie Ray's a rental. He's a free agent at the end of the year. And because they traded for him, it's not like they can offer him the qualifying offer. So, so it'd be interesting to see if they're pitching the coaching staff and what they can do with these guys. I mean, if they can get them right going into the playoffs along with Ryu, I'm going to make a little noise. That lineup,
Yeah.
They could definitely make a little noise. I think they're third in the American League in home runs. I mean, they hit pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind them seeing them take out the Rays in the first round. I mean, you never know because it's only 3 games. They can definitely they can end up maybe stealing that.
Well, and that's part of the interesting magic of the way that they're kind of setting this postseason up, is having the 3-game intro series for everybody. So anybody gets hot for a couple games and they get the pitching right at just the right times, you never know what could happen. I am excited about them acquiring Stripling. I mean, I'm a big Stripling homer. One thing that I found when I was kind of looking up stuff about him, I know he's had a rough start and has a ERA over 5 this year. I can't remember the exact number, but it's an insane home run per 9 rate of 3.2. That's not going to stay high. His hits per 9 are high. His walks per 9 are high, career highs for him. And despite all that, despite the horrid start to 2020, he's still got a career ERA of 3.68. So he's obviously a good pitcher who's just had a really bad stretch. Middle of the season, in the middle of a potential playoff race, is kind of a hard time to correct issues. But the Blue Jays are obviously taking some gambles, but they're kind of in the position where they kind of need to take gambles. And if the gambles pay off, if even one of these pitchers kind of gets themselves straightened out, they have a decent 2 or 3 headed monster as far as pitching goes. And then if that works out for them going into the postseason, who knows what could happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of baseball. Anything can happen.
I mean, yeah, piggybacking on what Kody said. I mean, honestly, if you go into a 3-game series and you have Ryu, you can get Robbie Ray straight. Even if you did a little combo Game 3, Chase Anderson and Ross Stripling, let them each pitch 3 innings. I mean, I don't know. They're hitting and everything like that. Yeah, granted they'd be on the road, but
yeah,
the bats, like we said, that 3-game series is gonna be crazy.
Yeah. It was something interesting with the VR trade. The guy that the Marlins got in return, it was Griffin Conine, who's the son of Mr. Marlin, Jeff Conine. So now he's playing for the Marlins. That's pretty interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Jays got all the kids, didn't they? Like all of the kids.
Yeah.
Is that playing for team building?
I think that was that plan, like going in. It's like, all right, let's see, Biggio's kid, Bichette's kid, Guerrero's kid. They actually had Clemens' kid too, Kody Clemens.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Yeah, they just like, let's get all the sons. Let's get the pedigree.
Yeah.
Let's go with DNA instead of OBP.
Right.
All right, Cody's cracking up, but he's on mute. I can see him.
Because I was laughing so hard. Oh my god! Oh, that's great.
It's true though. I mean, Kody Clemens. It's funny because Kody Clemens was a first baseman, so you could add Clemens, Biggio, Bichette, and Guerrero in the infield. Like that. That would have been their infield. I think Conine playing left field. I mean, that's just insane. But
yeah.
Hey, it's been working out. I mean, I like Kevin Biggio. I like Bo Bichette's been a stud. Little, Vladito over there has been, he'll get his.
Yeah.
He's been so far.
So I'm going to transition here. Well, unless we have some other stuff to talk about with the deadline. I don't know if you guys had anything else.
Nothing else for me. No.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think we covered like the major
Yeah.
stuff. Anyway, I mean, they were smaller moves that teams made. I mean, we were expecting somebody. We heard rumors about Lance Lynn, Joey Gallo, like some of the bigger names that I even heard a rumor that the Nationals might. Someone was talking about, and this is on Twitter, so don't give this any credence. But I was seeing like rumors about like why wouldn't the Nationals trade Scherzer? I mean, next year's his last year of his deal. Then he's a free agent. And the Nationals aren't coming back from 12-20 this year, 19-31 last year. They had 100 games to come back from it. This year, like Alex and I talked about before, they're 12-20. They get 28 games. It's not happening this year. So with Strasburg out, why not move Scherzer? I mean, I get it. I get why they didn't. He's a draw still. I mean, every time he pitches, but and they don't have to do it this year. They could do it next year.
Absolutely.
But I'm just saying, like, it might have been interesting, like, to see maybe Mike Lerner might have seen, like, what can I get for Scherzer, and no one was offering anything crazy. So maybe he was like, you know what? I'll wait till the offseason, wait till next year, see what happens. Same as a lot of these guys, like Texas. They still have Lance Lynn for next year. They still have Gallo under control for another couple of years. Like, there's no rush to move these guys in a shortened season like this. And honestly, the rental is a lot shorter also, because you got to remember the trade deadline is August 31st, not July 31st. So you're only renting a guy for a month of the regular season rather than 2 months of the regular season to get him acclimated and stuff like that. So I get not moving your top-notch pieces if you don't have to. I understand that. So,
and it could have been a thing, especially as much of a pillar of the team as Scherzer's been. It could have been a thing where the team went to Scherzer and said, "Hey, we've been thinking about dealing you. What do you think?" And he's like, "No, I want to stay here. I want to finish my time here." Or it could have just been a thing where the owner just wasn't interested in moving him because he's been a part of that team for so long, because he's won them the championship. It's like, no, you're due to stay here and finish your term out here. I mean, that could be a thing where they reassess it next year, like you said, and just go, you know what, now might be the time to do it, especially if somebody's like just gonna give us the Godfather offer to make it happen. But
yeah, I kind of feel like they're going to end up doing the same thing what they did with Harper, because I thought for sure they would have traded him, but then they ended up letting him go into free agency instead of getting a haul for him. Like, I don't know.
Well, Lerner's got more money than God, so I mean, it doesn't matter to him. Like, and he's still paying Scherzer. He's got to pay Scherzer for another 7 years.
yeah,
His contract's deferred. So he pays him $15 million a year for the next 7 years. Like that told. So Scherzer doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's still getting paid. That's his retirement plan. Like, it doesn't matter to him. But I mean, honestly, Mike Lerner's been like that, like you said about the Harper. But it's kind of like goes back to like Kody. We could talk about the Royals. I mean, look what they did last year, or the year before. They could have traded Moustakas and Kane and Hosmer and all these guys, and they didn't do it.
No.
They probably should have. In hindsight, they probably should have, but they didn't. They stuck with the guys that got them the World Series in 2015, and but you know what? They got the draft picks, and they're going to have an insane pitching staff.
I was going to say
coming up. They're pitching. They draft the pitching like I've never seen a team draft pitching, and all their guys, Singer, and Bubik, and all these guys. Like there's a couple other guys that I'm forgetting right now off the top. Kowar, Jackson Kowar. There's another guy I'm missing. There's a fourth guy. Singer, Kolar, Bubik. There's another
Okay.
one that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. But they drafted pitching like unbelievably. So, they'll be set for a little while, especially even if 2 of the 4 pan out.
Yep.
They'll
Oh,
be
the other
all right.
one. The other one was Daniel Lynch.
Oh,
Lynch.
right.
That's it. Daniel Lynch, the lefty. Yep.
Also,
Bubik and Lynch are the lefties. Yeah.
Yeah, they also just drafted Asa Lacy too. So once he's
Yeah.
up, he'll be another one.
That's right. Lacey this year. Yep. Yeah. So they're in a good position. In another 2 years, 3 years, they'll be in a good position. It's just incumbent on them now to be able to move Merrifield and to get rid of their assets at this point, and then just have the young guys in another 2-3 years, kind of like what the White Sox did a couple of years ago. Move their guys. They got Moncada. They got Jimenez. They drafted Robert. They hung on to Abreu. They got Giolito in the deal.
Yeah.
Just a matter of putting it all together.
Yeah.
The Royals have made interesting choices, and you don't know if at the time, at least, if they're always the right choices, but they've made smart choices when they've had to, like trading Wade Davis when they had to get Jorge Soler, and that's worked out pretty wonderfully for them so far. But you wonder what they're going to do with Merrifield. It feels like, and it could be different now that Matheny's in there rather than Ned Yost, but it feels like he's just the guy that's just the clubhouse glue and just the guy that's kind of helping everybody along and keeping everybody together. And it's like, yeah, you want to think that he's going to get them some sort of big deal at some point with some trade deadline move or some offseason move, but it's like, at what point does the benefit outweigh the cost? And the Royals think about these things differently than just straight up assets. They think of these guys more as players and more as people and more as guys that have use outside of just the numerical output that they put out on the field. So they operate a little differently than other more, what's the word I want to use, analytically inclined teams do, I guess. But they do still make some pretty wise and shrewd moves and know when to let a guy go when they feel like it's time to. And I'd still think they're going to get some sort of Godfather offer for Merrifield, and it just hasn't happened yet. And so they're like, well, until we get the deal that just knocks our socks off, we'll just sit here with Whit Merrifield on our team and just be happy with that.
Yeah, Merrifield's not making a lot of money, so I mean, it's not like it's killing the Royals. It's not like the guy's making $30 million a year, where it's like just trying, because Kansas City's a mid-market team, so I mean, they signed him to an extension, 4 years, $22 million. When they're paying the guy $5 million a year until 2022. So I mean, and they have a team option for 2023. So there's plenty. So if they don't get knocked over by a deal, it's not like it hurts their pocketbook at all. They can keep him. They can keep him and not have to worry about it, really. So that's a good thing for them. Mondesi, Soler, got a couple guys. Gordon's going to be gone soon.
Yeah.
But their pitching staff is going to be sick. It's going to be good. And then you just sign bats. They go the opposite way of what the Cubs did over the past, 5-6 years. The Cubs went and drafted bats, and they signed pitchers. It's basically what they've done. Atlanta went the opposite way. Atlanta drafted pitchers. So it's all how your organization looks at it. Let's draft to a strength. Let's draft all guys. I mean, you look at the Cubs. They drafted Bryant. They drafted Happ. They drafted Torres. They drafted Eloy Jimenez. They drafted all these guys, and they signed pitchers. Yes, they developed Hendricks, but they signed Darvish. They signed Lester. They signed. They traded. All right, they traded for Chapman, but I mean, they signed their pitchers, whereas they drafted hitters. Whereas Atlanta, on the other hand, Atlanta went and drafted Ian Anderson, Mike Soroka, Kyle Wright. They went and did that. So they went more that end. Kansas City's going that end too. We're drafting Bubik and Lynch and Asa Lacy and Singer and Kohler. So it all depends on how you look at it and how your scouting department is, how your development department is. Do you feel you can develop pitchers more than you can develop hitters? Maybe that's the case in certain organizations. So we'll see how it works out for Kansas City.
Yeah.
Helps that they've already had some hitting in their system, some young hitters. I mean, they have Adalberto Mondesi. They had Jorge Soler that they got from the Cubs. They had Nicky Lopez, who I still think is going to be a good hitter. I'm still driving the Nick Lopez bandwagon, and even if I'm driving it into the darn ground.
I've jumped off that bandwagon.
I'm going to ride it into the stinking ground if I have to. I don't care. But they have Bobby Witt Jr. They have Khalil Lee, who could still be a thing. They have other guys in their system. I can't think of the other outfielder that I really liked from their system a while back. He's still there and he's decent. Oh, I can't say his name. That's why I probably can't remember. Stewie Matias, who could still be a thing. He's a very tooly prospect who could still end up being very good. So they have hitting in the system as well. And so it just helps to develop, like you said, to develop a strength, but it also helps to attack a weakness. And pitching has been a weakness for the Royals for God knows how long. I mean, I've sat here and suffered through I guess Kevin Napier is our best guy years, and different guys like that, where you hope these guys come along. Luke Hochevar, who ended up being a decent reliever, but was never the guy that they hoped that he would be. The Royals have had a problem with developing pitching, and it looks now like they've just decided to attack that weakness and turn it into a strength. And if they can, they have a really good chance to be a dangerous team in the next couple of years, like you said.
I think they'll be dangerous definitely in another few years. I mean, once the Twins have to address their because you got to look at it this way: the AL Central, it's a bunch of mid-market teams. That's what they are. I mean, the Twins, the Royals, the Tigers, the Indians, the White Sox. No one spends money. None of them spend money. So Chicago, I mean,
they don't.
Yeah, they could, but they don't because they're the South Side. They're not. They're the Mets of Chicago, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not the Cubs. So it is what it is, and they're trying to make their mark now. And of course, they have a lot of young, exciting players, and they're looking to be good for another couple of years. But even with the White Sox, I see flaws in their starting rotation. Giolito's proven himself this year, which I didn't see coming. I know he was great last year. He was horrible the year before. I see inconsistencies, but he's proven himself to be finally, what he was supposed to be. But the rest of their staff, I mean, if Kopech comes back next year from Tommy John surgery, all right. Yeah, the kid could throw 100 miles an hour, but what does that mean? Carlos Rodon, can he ever stay healthy? Dallas Keuchel is what he is. Ronaldo Lopez is nothing special. Like, I mean, I just don't see the White Sox starting rotation as being anything crazy. Granted, their lineup is fine with Moncada and Jimenez and Robert and those guys. Abreu's getting older. So, I don't know. There's weaknesses there. Cleveland, I see weaknesses there too. Their starting rotation is great. They'll always have a decent bullpen. And Terry Francona is one of the best managers in the league. So I have no doubt that he'll manage that bullpen well. But their lineup is always seems to be lacking. The Twins, all right, the starters, we need help. Odorizzi's going to be gone this year. Pineda, we got one more year of him, but who knows what he'll be. Dobnak's been great this year, but will he be good next year? Maeda is solid. And even the hitting. Rosario's got one more year. Nelly Cruz is 40 years old. I mean, how much longer can he do this? Buxton can't stay healthy. So you got Kepler and Polanco and Sano. Sano's got 2 more years. I mean, where do we go from here? So the whole division is kind of like up in the air. There are weaknesses everywhere, on each team going forward of the next couple of years. So, I mean, that's why I don't know. I think it's going to be really close over the next. That whole division is going to be tight. Detroit seems like they're coming into their own, but I don't know about them either. They don't have a lot of talent on that team, really, to be honest.
No.
I'm surprised they're even at around 500.
Yeah, we talked about before the show that right now they're a half game back of the 8th seed, but of the Blue Jays. So
yeah, I mean Jacoby Jones is a really good player. Nico Goodrum, Cabrera. How long is Miguel Cabrera going to be around? He's been killing the ball this year. But I mean, when does he turn into Albert Pujols and just stop hitting? Who knows?
that's why they got Torkelson.
Yeah, and then even in the starting rotation, I mean, Turnbull's decent. Whatever happened to Michael Fulmer? I mean, Matt Boyd was horrible in the beginning of the year. It looks like he's starting to figure out his changeup a little bit. But I mean, what really did they have in the rotation? That whole division is just a bunch of question marks. A bunch of good teams that just have holes. That's the way I look at the AL Central. There's a bunch of real good teams. I mean, honestly, if you include Detroit, aside from their loss last night, they had 4 teams who were 500 or more. But that's what they are. They're just a bunch of good teams. That's it.
Yeah.
None of them move the needle. And none of them have the strength to beat a team like the Yankees at full strength, the A's at full strength, even the Rays at full strength, even the Astros at full strength. Like, none of them have that staying power through the playoffs. They might get lucky, one of them, but honestly, I could see that division being like just, all of them just fighting all year long in a regular season.
It's around 500 like the whole year, and just one of them
the whole year.
hot again to get it. Yeah.
Whoever finishes with 85 wins that division, basically.
I hate it because you're right. And being a Royals apologist, not necessarily a fan, but living in the area of the Royals fan base, I mean, it's hard not to root for them, and you get to watch the games every night, so it's fun to watch them. But you get the feeling that, that's kind of their best case scenario. They're not going to have another magical season like they did in 2015 again. And their best case scenario is just building the heck out of their prospects and their organizational depth to the point where they can just kind of get lucky, get a couple really good signings, and just hope to push push over these giants like you're talking about, these Yankees and Red Sox and all the teams that are like that. The one thing that excites me about the Royals, at least, is the ownership team seems to be the new ownership seems to be a team that is a little more willing to spend. I don't know if that's going to be the case because we haven't seen it yet, but they're also not in the position where we needed to see it yet. But we kind of hope to see, like, in the next year or two, when the kids are starting to get a little better and we're starting to get a few more guys to come up, that they just kind of go and spend their money on somebody. Like, we see the Padres and the way they've escalated their team, the way the team has grown. They didn't wait to go and get their big purchase. They got oh my gosh, I just blanked on his name. I can see his stupid face that I want to punch. Oh my gosh, who's the guy that they signed last year? The big, huge, $300 million man. Why can't I think of his name? All I can say is Tatis.
Machado.
Right, Machado, thank you. They went and got Manny Machado last year before they were supposed to be good. The kids weren't ready yet, but they were like, this is a superstar. We can't wait to spend our money on that kind of guy. We need to add him now and let the kids go around him. And look at the way that that's paid off this year, that all the kids are showing up and that he's there helping them along, and we get to see them all grow up together. And it's been a wonderful ride to watch that team play and the way they play. But what if they decided, no, we're not at that point on the win curve yet. We're not at that point where we should go spend money. We should probably wait. We need to wait a year or two to spend. They're like, no, we're getting them now. And it's paid off for them this year. It might have been a little bit bumpy for a little while, but they're ready to go now. They're ready to win now. And we're seeing it with the way that A.J. Preller handled the trade deadline. We're ready to win right now.
Yeah, speaking of we talked about the Padres and White Sox. So we have a question from on Twitter. I had put up, like, anyone to drop their questions are actually our own Jacob Dune from Primetime Sports Talk. He asked, excluding your favorite team, what's a World Series matchup you'd love to watch? And my answer is going to be the White Sox and Padres, because they're just two of the most exciting young teams in the league right now, and they're just mashing the hell out of the ball right now. A lot of home runs. The White Sox, Abreu was just named the AL Player of the Month this past month. With he has 12 home runs on the year, and then on the Padres side, Tatis Jr. was named the NL Player of the Month. He has 13 home runs, tied for the league lead. Of course, the whole thing with the Grand Slams, Slam Diego Padres. So, they're not allowed to hit any more of the Grand Slams, according to, just forgot his name, the guy, the manager of the Rangers.
Is that it?
What?
Is it Woodward?
Yeah, Chris Woodward. Yeah. Anyway, and other than that, though, just like and especially now with Padres getting Clevenger, I would love to see a matchup like that. I don't think it will happen. I mean, I could see the Padres make it. I just don't think the White Sox have, like Johnny said, they don't have the pitching to get there. But either way, it would be exciting to see that matchup, even if it's next year, maybe.
That would be a fun matchup. I'm going to cheat a little bit if I get to and say that I'm not sure. Oh, I'll go ahead and say the World Series that I'm interested in. I'd probably say the A's and the Padres. I think the A's have built a remarkable team, and I really want to see them finally do some damage in a postseason. But the thing I'm almost more interested in is if we get the chance to have an NLCS that has the Padres going against the Dodgers. and just that divisional matchup play out for a whole NLCS and a chance to get into the World Series. That's a matchup I really want to see in the postseason, and I think we're going to get it if it's not in the DS, then definitely in the NLCS, and I think that's going to be a matchup that's going to be fun to watch with all of the fun guys that the Padres have against the crusty old vets that the Dodgers have. It'd be a bit of a fun matchup to see, I think.
Yeah, that would be.
I'm gonna
really fun.
I'm gonna go with a little rematch. I want to see the Indians Cubs. If I can't pick my team, then I want to go see a rematch of the Indians Cubs, and this time the Indians take it. It's been a long time since they won a World Series. What, 1948, I believe, was the last time they won. I mean, they're the last team. I mean, the White Sox won in 2005. The Cubs finally won in 2016. These are teams that waited a long time to see a championship. And Terry Francona, to me, is one of the best managers in baseball. He's always been. And being up here in Boston, he got a raw deal up here with the Red Sox. And even though the Indians are in the same division with the Twins, and I can't stand them to a point, I can't hate them because they got a couple guys that I like. Carlos Santana, I love. Frankie Lindor, I love. Terry Francona is one of my favorite managers, aside from, Baldelli. But I'd like to see the Indians Cubs match up again. And I'd like to see the Indians take it this time.
Yeah, that would be a good one to see too. Especially with 2016 was one of the best ones, like one of the best Game 7s. Well, probably the best Game 7 of all time. Well, at least in my lifetime.
Yeah, 1991 was better, but I'm biased.
But
I think these young teams like the Padres and White Sox, they're gonna have time.
Yeah.
To get there, I think the Cubs and Indians are kind of, this is their window too.
Right. Yeah.
I just don't think either team is going to be. I just don't think either team is going to be great next year. I mean, the Indians will still be there because of their staff, but you just don't know how the hitting is going to be. And if they trade Lindor, that's a big piece of their lineup that they get rid of. Santana's another year older. Now, I don't see Carlos Santana losing his eye at the plate or anything like that, but, I just don't know. And then the Cubs, too. I mean, Lester, I think, is one more year. He's 36. Darvish has been great. Hendricks has been great. But, I mean, is Chatwood really your man there? Is your number 3 starter? Like, I don't know. They got to make decisions, too. I mean, Baez, Bryant, Rizzo, they got to sign all these guys in the next year or two. So, what do you do? So, I mean, I think the window for the Cubs and Indians also plays into that, because I think that both teams are kind of, this is their year. If not, then with a full season next year, I just don't know if they're going to be as competitive over the next couple of years. I think they both need to kind of retool. The Cubs have enough money, but like I said, Rizzo, Baez, Bryant, their contracts are all coming up. Who do you sign? Can't sign all 3.
No.
So, this is going to be decision time. Lester's going to be gone. As much as you want to say about John Lester, I mean, honestly, John Lester to me is a Hall of Famer. From what he's done in his career, the 2 rings with the Red Sox, the ring with the Cubs, he's been as solid as any left-handed pitcher I've seen in the past 20 years.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Me, obviously.
so, but he's on his way out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I just looked at it as team-wise. But I understand your guys, like saying the White Sox, Padres, or whatever. Yeah, I'd love to see these young guys and see what they do in the World Series. I'd also like to see Philly because I picked them for the World Series in the National League side. But I'd like to see Bryce Harper get to World Series. That'd be cool to see. See what he does.
Well, I wish I could say the Angels too with Mike Trout, but they're playing like crap, and so.
Oh, they're hard.
I guess
it's such a shame.
Yeah,
Trout's gonna wind up. Trout's gonna wind up like A-Rod. All those years with A-Rod, and he never didn't make the playoffs. Didn't
or like even.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, 1 year. I mean, A-Rod's got one ring. For how great as he was.
Yeah.
He won the one ring with the 09 Yankees. And that was it. Trout's going to be – it's going to come down to that, I think. Maybe eventually the Angels make it. Maybe they wind up trading him and he gets a ring later in his career.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? But it's a shame.
I just hope it's like he doesn't have that one playoff appearance. Like, hopefully they at least make it again. Because that's what happened with Mattingly. That Mattingly only made it to the playoffs once, I think.
Yeah, 95.
Yeah, 95.
And it was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. It's funny. Mattingly came up in 82, a year after the Yankees made the World Series. And then he retired after 95, a year before they won it.
Right.
He never made it to the World Series.
No.
But I mean, Ted Williams too. He made it to one World Series in his career. That was it. Greatest hitter of all time. And that was it. So who knows?
It's amazing to think about. I wonder if the Angels just hamstrung by the Pujols deal and the fact that they feel like they have to play him, because it's like, get anybody else out there other than Pujols every day, and the lineup's going to be so much better. But they just keep throwing Pujols out there and hoping that, I don't know what they're hoping for at this point, that he either eventually just completely flames out and just decides I'm done, or I don't even know. It's amazing that everybody, when they saw that deal, went, "Oh, this is going to end poorly," and I don't think anybody saw it ending this poorly.
Yeah,
and it's been a bad deal
at a time where they have the best player in baseball, full stop, and they can't do anything about it.
And the crazy thing was, at the time, I remember it, at the time, St. Louis fans were crucifying them for not signing Pujols.
Oh, I remember.
They were crucifying him. They were like, how don't you sign this guy? This guy is the best hitter. And they were smart. They were smart.
Yeah.
He was putting up numbers that were in line with Stan the Man, and everybody in St. Louis, and we have a lot of Cardinals fans in this area, and a lot of people were like, they have to keep him. They have to find a way to keep him. He's the best hitter in baseball, and he's going to be able to carry this team for another several years. And it's like, kudos to the Cardinals for seeing the writing on the wall, whatever they saw, that they decided, no, we're not going to try it. We just can't do it, feasibly, financially, whatever reason it was. They were like, this just doesn't make sense for us. And they've won World Series since, and Albert Pujols has been the bane of the Angels' existence ever since. So I guess good job, Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, How do you match a 10-year, $300 million contract when the guy's 30 years old already? Like, what are you doing? It's good for the Cardinals that they didn't. I mean, they couldn't sign him, really. I mean, they're not going to match that money. Why? Because, like you said, you hamstring your organization like that. Yeah, the Angels had the money, so they were like, "Yeah, hoo. Albert Pujols, yeah, coming off, the season that he had in St. Louis and in 330 bombs, and but I think the Cardinals saw the writing on the wall that it was, this guy's just going to decline."
Yeah.
And he has. I mean, he was decent for the first few years with the Angels. Like, he was all right. But he's gone downhill big time since then. Same thing with Cabrera. With Detroit, I mean, yes, they signed him and everything. They signed him to that big extension, the year extension and everything, But Cabrera's actually been a decent hitter. It's just that he can't stay on the field.
Yeah.
But Cabrera's actually been a pretty good hitter when he's been on the field. Granted, he's not what he was.
Right.
Of course not. But he's actually been hitting this year too. Like, he's still raking the ball. It's just that, 8, like we say, father time's undefeated.
Yeah.
You just can't keep going. I mean, and we'll see, like we say with Trout too. I mean, everyone, Trout's obviously one of the best players ever at this point in his career and stuff like that. But you don't know. You just don't know. Guy hits 30, 31, 32. Injuries happen. You don't come back as soon as you used to.
Yeah.
This is why we look at guys like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, like, name them, Roberto Clemente, like, all these guys. This is why we look at these guys who have had 18-year careers, 20-year careers. Paul Yastrzemski, 23 years with the Red Sox. Like, this Cal Ripken with the all-time streak and everything. This is why we look at these guys in awe. In awe is because it is so hard to last that long and be that good for that long.
They're the exception and not the rule.
Because the game, when you play the game that long, we've seen it already. You look at the last 10, 15 years. How has the game changed? The game's completely different than it was in 2005, 15 years ago. Game's completely different. The way people look at things is completely different. To be able to go from actually to span like 15, 20 years of a career, generations, now we're talking about like 2 generations of basically baseball players, and to be able to be that good for that long, as the game changes, as the approaches change, as the defense approaches, the pitching approaches, all that stuff, to be that good for that long, that's impressive. That's impressive. And that's why guys that I've mentioned, along with, there are a ton of other guys, Mike Schmidt, Johnny Bench, George Brett, Robin Yount, Paul Molitor, like, you can name a ton of them, but there aren't that many. And that's why there are 20,000 players that have played in the major leagues. Only 200 players are in the Hall of Fame. That's why. Because it's so hard to be that good for that long in this game.
And it's like what you talked about with the game has changed. We're looking for different players now. We're not looking for, necessarily 40 home run, 100 RBI, past 300 guys that are just going to play first base. We're looking for guys that are more athletic now. We're looking for guys that can play multiple positions. It's not necessarily positionless baseball per se, as some people have tried to call it, but we do see guys where it's like when you bring a guy up, it's like, oh, you don't play. It's not that you just play second base. It's that you play the infield, or you don't just play left field. You play the corners, or you know, we're not looking for guys. They're not looking for guys that are just going to play one position. We're going to look for guys that can play all over the field, so that when the matchups dictate we need these 7 or 8 or 9 hitters, we can plug them in, fill in the gaps with whoever's left, and make a solid lineup card, and just kind of play with whoever needs to play. It's amazing to see guys like even guys as uber talented as Chris Bryant come up, and it's like, yeah, he came up as a third baseman, but it's like he plays all over the place. He plays left field, right field, first base, wherever they need him in any given day. It's like the guys that I grew up loving because they played that way even before they looked correct. Guys like Ben Zobrist, who was a near MVP caliber hitter, but played every single position on the field basically. That was the exception, and now those guys have almost become the rule. We're not looking for the guys who clog the bases anymore. We're looking for good base runners all the time now. Not necessarily, guys who are going to steal 40 bases, but guys who are going to be able to go first to third or first to home that, from a position where we might not have normally seen that before.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true. And I think that's what you're going to see more of nowadays, because baseball is cyclical that way. Is you go from the athletic point, then you go for the power hitter, then you go for the, pitching is the same way. It's very cyclical with baseball, and I think now, like you said, Kody, is that guys are looking for more athletic because a lot more emphasis is put on versatility and defense now.
Yeah.
Whereas it wasn't as much 10 years ago.
Yep.
10 years ago, power hitter. I want a guy who put the ball over the fence. 30 years ago, like when Tony Gwynn and guys like that were playing, put the bat on the ball, don't strike out.
Yep.
Now no one cares about strikeouts. I don't
Right.
care if you strike out 200 times. If you're hitting 40 bombs and walking 100 times, I don't care. No one cares. Yep. And that's why it's hard when some of these analytic guys, and I'm an analytical guy to a point, but sometimes when some of the analytical guys get too analytical and they try to compare, because I remember Andre Dawson, the Hawk, talking about it. And I remember him talking in an interview a while back when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, talking about when he was playing, he was the third or fourth hitter all the time on the team. They had Rock Raines and they had Gary Carter back in Montreal and stuff like that. But he was like, look, if there was a guy on second and 2 outs, I would swing to hit the ball anywhere. It's not what I swung at. I would swing at anything. If I thought I could reach the ball, I would put it in play. That mentality is different now. And that's why you can't look at guys back then. Guys didn't strike out. They swung and hit the ball, but their on-base percentages were low because they weren't. Someone like Andre Dawson wasn't willing to take that walk when Gary Carter was on second base, where he could possibly hit the ball to right field for a single and drive him in. Yeah. So there was a different mentality when these hitters went up to the plate. Nowadays it's different. So it's hard to compare errors. Even comparing stats, it's difficult because of that. Because these players grew up on a different mentality of how to play baseball and what was a good thing in baseball. Nowadays, it's take a walk, get on base. It's all about on-base percentage, OPS, everything like that. Back then, when Dawson was playing, it was like, I'm the cleanup hitter. This is a guy on second with 2 outs. I got to put the ball in play. I'm not taking a walk and leaving it up to the next guy. You know what I mean? So there's a very different mentality nowadays, and like I said before, like to be successful across generations like that, across the way the game has changed, or the way the game does change, constantly changes over the past 5, 10, 15 years. To be that good for that long is definitely impressive. And that's why we have these Hall of Famers. And that's why someone like Trout, guys like that, even Pujols, I mean, he was such an incredible hitter. Granted, he's fallen off, but he's still unbelievable, and the way he played and, the way he went about the game and everything like that. I mean, he's easily first ballot.
Yep.
Mm. Yeah, real quickly before we probably should wrap this up here soon. But just want to give our kind of a mid-season prediction for the World Series, just like whatever we think of at the top. Like it doesn't have to be any in depth. Just kind of give what we think it's going to be. And looking back for like before the season, my prediction for the World Series was the Diamondbacks, and I think there was the Rays. So I was way off on the Diamondbacks, but I still think I'm still going to go with the Rays actually, to come out of the American League, and then go with I'll go with the Cubs for the NL. So Rays Cubs World Series.
Kody, what you got?
As much as I love the Padres and what they've done and the team building job that they've done, I still feel like I really have a hard time, especially in this kind of year, going against Dodgers. I would really like, before I said I'd want a Padres A's World Series. I think the Dodgers and Athletics in a World Series would be a pretty good one too. And I really think that the Athletics have the team that can push it and make it happen. But I really still feel like the Dodgers have the manpower to make it happen. So I'd probably say Dodgers and A's. I bet it'd be a 7-game series. I think the Dodgers get it in Game 7, and as much as I want to go against it, I feel like that's the way it'll probably end up being.
I'm going to stick with my original prediction with the Twins and Phillies. So I still think the Twins, even though they've been scuffling lately, I think they're going to get hot. Same thing with the Phillies. The Phillies have been actually pretty good, 7-3 in their last 10. I think they can move up a little bit. Both teams are still in a wild card spot. They're still in the playoff hunt. And I think there's a hot streak coming for Bryce Harper. I really do. I picked Bryce Harper as my MVP in the National League in the beginning of the year too. So I'm going with Twins and Phillies. I'm going to stick with my original prediction. I'll stick with it.
That's interesting.
Okay. Well, I think that'll wrap it up here. I guess just gotta go and eat some dinner. But yeah, as always, thanks for listening to the show, and of course, thank you to you guys for coming on. Kody, it was good to have you back. So definitely can have you on again here, whatever, and some other episodes that we do. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Hopefully we can do some more DFS episodes, as we've kind of not done one in a few days now, but this kind of normal episodes too, maybe we'll continue, especially as we get close to the postseason. We're gonna have to go over some of the postseason. Maybe do a prediction show for that. And see where we're at as far as our award predictions as well. Mine, I don't think mine are looking that great. I had Judge winning the MVP, and he's hurt right now, so it's not looking great. But yeah, we'll look back more at that when we get towards the end of the season. So yeah, as always, you can never have too much pod tar. We'll see you again for the next episode.